Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the GBYWN Australia podcast. I think this is like episode 38 or 39 or something now. But I'm here with, once again for part 2, former XCW Tag Team Champion, WZWA Tag Team Champion, XCW Television Champion.
XCW 2003 Rookie of the Year.
Oh, fantastic. When you were our only rookie?
Yeah, that's true. Oh, also Outsider of the Decade.
Well, there we go. And I'm talking to Blade Shaw.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Good to have you here, Blade. Finally, we got to do one of these in person, not just over the Skype.
Yes.
I don't mind the Skype one so much, but I prefer being in person. Have a few drinks, listen to the birds chirping, the cars driving by,
Wind rustling through the leaves.
wind rustling through the leaves, cat meowing for dinner. It's just lovely.
It's beautiful.
It's lovely. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. So, Blade, from where we left off last time, we were at just after Highway to Hell 2004, where you picked up a big win over yours truly. Yep. And then I mentioned where we were headed with the storylines at the time, but unfortunately they didn't end up happening, as XCW went into a little bit of a down period once again.
Yes.
I believe we're all in year 12.
Except for me.
Except for you. But a lot of, I don't even know why we didn't put any shows on. We just couldn't be bothered.
Too busy trying to get laid and shit.
Yeah, fuck yeah, mate. That's fucking sick. So, yeah, we were a bit distracted with the pussy, but with a lack of. But we enter 2005. I believe it's 2005. I should have got the XCW book out.
Yeah, again.
Pretty sure it's 2005. Fight for Farewell.
Yeah.
Right? So, going into this show, we're all under the impression it's the last ever XCW event.
Yes.
We're all thinking that this is the last time we're all going to wrestle together.
Yep.
So, going into this show, we haven't wrestled in about a year. How are you feeling? I mean, as in comparison to the last one. We don't have to talk about the last show, but
it was really bizarre, I guess, because I just kind of moved on in that aspect of my life. Like, at this point, I wasn't watching wrestling anymore, so I wasn't particularly interested per se. But
I managed to convince you to come along.
Yeah, I mean, it was the last XCW show, something that I enjoyed for 2 or 3 years. So yeah, why would I not want to wrestle one last time?
Well, we were all still quite connected at the time because we all still went to school together and stuff. But Mike was also going out with Stacey, so he was still with her at the time.
Yeah.
So that core XCW group was always there, where it was always for some reason John always thought, Blade's probably not going to come.
Yeah.
He's probably not. No, he's just trust me, he's coming. And then you were there.
Yeah.
So anyway, Fight for Farewell. 2 out of 3 falls versus Lance Lightning. I put the card together and I was just thinking of, what would be the ideal last match for Lance and Blade. And then, it was just obvious to me that the two of you, that small program that you guys had in the XCW, XWA storyline.
Yeah.
Was probably the best thing that you guys had
put together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like a mid-card feud, but it was something that we remembered, you two by an XCW. So, first of all, thoughts on the choice of Lance Lightning being your potential final opponent and the match itself, which, as we know, was very brutal.
Having Lance as my last opponent was awesome. Like we talked about earlier in the first part. It was cool working with him, and I think, as you said, 2 wrongs made a right in this instance.
Yes.
And so we were going to put on maybe not a technically savvy match, but it was going to be a brawl.
Well, you knew it.
Yeah.
And he was Smash Mouth brawler.
Exactly.
In every sense of the word. And sometimes he actually thought it was real.
And the match itself was awesome. So many brutal points, holy shit.
Man.
le-
It was just you guys beat the shit out of each other.
I think I almost killed him like 2 or 3 times, and that got referenced a lot when we came back. Was like, oh, Blade almost killed Les 3 times.
I think they called it the die match.
Yeah. It's like one was
someone's going to die.
Yeah, like I powerbombed him onto his head. And then he like dislocated my knee at the end of the match. We had to finish early.
Spine buster?
Yeah, I put my knee like up into his chest.
And
he
remember,
went down.
ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about doing bumps on grass here.
Yeah.
So Lance Lightning's neck bumped off a powerbomb onto grass. Blade is, a spine buster when you just get picked up and spine busted into the mat. Not too bad. But when you get spine busted onto grass, it's very hard to bump that very, very nicely.
Yeah.
Especially when you're untrained. So, dislocated knee.
Yep.
I think Lance
near
had
broken neck.
Dislocated neck. But in the end, you know what? I look at that match and I just think that is an all-out war between those two. They laid it all on the line there. They gave us the absolute best they could.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like
even if it's not a technical classic.
No.
Even if it's not, it's still a memorable match because of the passion that went into it.
Yeah, and I remember you saying to me like it was one of your favourite matches to watch just because of the entertainment factor, like the fact that we would just look like we were going to kill one another.
Yeah.
And I mean that's awesome. And plus in this match I have awesome hair. I remember somebody saying during the match like, "Oh, look at Blade's hair. Like how great is that?" That was the faux hawk, like
gotcha.
David Beckham period.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I also remember maybe John didn't have your theme song, so you came out to the Top Gun theme.
No, I wanted to come out to that.
Really?
That's why, yeah. And I come out with the Mighty Ducks jersey, like, just ridiculously trying to get over as a babyface.
Gotcha, okay. Well, you'll still own a Blade, sure, but we didn't really implement your owner status on the show because it was like, it doesn't matter, It's the last event.
He owns a company that's going defunct.
Yes. So, I rounded out the card there with I think it was my 3rd match of the day.
Yeah.
No, 4th.
Jesus.
I wrestled in place of Hydro because he didn't show up to face Nick Ariel in his last match.
Yep.
Then me and Lance stopped the tag titles to Vaughn and Chris because I always kept in the back of my mind, if it does come back, I'll still know that Chris and Vaughn will be able to wrestle, but Leslie won't.
Yep.
And then I wrestled Mike for the championship, and then I wrestled John in the main event, so 4 matches.
Far out, man.
Yeah. But it is what it is. I don't think my performances on the day were very good. I think my match with Nick was probably the best one out of all of them. But Fight for Farewell 2005, the last show apparently at the time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about time away from XCW.
Okay.
What goes on in the life of Blade Shaw? Let's talk about between Highway to Hell and Fight for Farewell, and then from Fight for Farewell until 2007, so another 2 years without really any interaction with us.
Yeah, so it's it's bizarre. Like, I guess in between the first gap, I actually ended up leaving school. I left in year 11. And I was kind of just working mostly. Like, I worked, I think, like 2 or 3 part-time jobs. And was just kind of, working and hanging out with my friends and stuff. And then when 2005 rolled around, I had, like, a proper full-time job. It was really different. Like, I think it was a big disconnect in some regards, like, to my friends and people I knew, because a lot of them were still finishing school. And I had already kind of, like, moved on to the next chapter.
Okay.
So, like, I was working and like, kind of had other responsibilities. But, yeah, like, that part was, I think, very beneficial for me because, like, it set me up to be able to do things I'm doing now. Like, I'm just about to graduate this Saturday, like, with my uni degree.
Oh, wicked.
And, like, I never thought that would happen. But, these things take time and people take lots of different paths and stuff to get where they need to go. So, like, if you're out there and you think that you've got no chance of doing what you want to do, there are ways to do it. You just need to find...
You just need to seek it out.
Yeah,
it's not going to land in your lap.
Yeah, exactly. And find the way that works for you.
So you stopped watching wrestling as well?
Yeah, like, at this point, I was totally pretty much over wrestling. Like, it just wasn't something I was particularly interested in. And like the people I hung around with, like all my friends, none of them watched anymore or had watched ever, so there was no like connection over that, so to speak.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
I do remember actually scaling back a bit just after Highway to Hell 2004. Me and you actually thinking of doing EPW training.
Yes, I remember that.
So what happened there? What did you just never happened because me and you didn't take that step into doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think like we just never really went further than talking about it, and so like when you eventually went to do it, I don't even think I was even aware that you had. So
It was after Farewell I did it.
Yeah.
Because like, Shane Haste was special referee in the main event, so after that, I got to know the guys a bit more and I went to a few trainings and then I did a training camp with them and stuff, so
yeah.
Yeah, but, Blade the Pro Wrestler was going to be a possible thing one day.
Imagine how things would be like insanely different if I'd actually went and gone through
Imagine
pro
you
training.
never came back to XCW and after Fight for Farewell you did pro wrestling and then now you're in EPW all these years later.
That'd be
Imagine
crazy.
that. Imagine that.
Yeah, alternate universe.
Me and the WCWA guys would be in the crowd and be like, that guy used to be in XCW. So Return for Redemption 2006, we have a reunion show because we watch One Night Stand and we get like all the XCW boys watching One Night Stand and we were like, we've got to do one more.
Yeah.
We've got to do one more. Like, we were just so hyped up about it. Like, we'll just do one reunion show and that'll be it.
Yeah.
So we do Return for Redemption, no Blade Shaw. Do you know why? Because I can't remember.
No.
Did I reach out to you?
I can't. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you would have. I just can't remember the reason why it would have been that I didn't show up. What year was this? 2006. Okay.
So me and Bonnie Tuhorny in the main event, John versus Bonnie Tuhorny, Mike versus Chris Rowe, Fuse versus Chris Rowe.
Okay, so 2006, okay. The reason why I probably didn't show up, and I could be completely wrong, but thinking off the top of my head, like after around 2006 to probably like 2007, like so about a 2-year period, I went through like a really kind of like hermit phase. Like I was super depressed, and I'm kind of just like keeping to myself, like very introverted, and so I just didn't really like go out much or like hang out with many people. Like I was drinking like way too much and just like trying to kind of figure out like where my life was headed. And so that I probably would have just like given some shit excuse like I was sick or didn't feel well, as to why I didn't come.
I don't know, because I can't remember now. It's probably in the book.
Yeah.
I should have probably grabbed the book. But talk a little bit about the depression then. While you do, I'll go grab the book.
Okay, cool.
Talk a little bit about how it came about and why and what avenues you took to relieve yourself of it.
Okay. So like I guess as long as I can remember, like since probably year 7, I had been seeing. So I guess for people that are listening to this internationally, that's like when I'm about 12 years old, and it becomes very apparent that like I'm not a very like happy person by nature, and so I end up having to see the school psychologist, and my parents, my mum is really worried about I guess where my head's at and stuff, and so over the course I guess of my teenage years, like I'm seeing a psychologist on and off. I'm on a mixture of like antidepressant medication, and yeah, like it's one of those things. A lot of people struggle with it, and I think it unfortunately is like still somewhat of a difficult topic of conversation to breach, but it's just so infectious. Like I feel like there does need to be a dialogue about it, where people can like openly speak about how they feel. And people like me who haven't exactly had like the best upbringing, they need that support. I see myself as somebody who effectively only grew up with one parent, despite the fact that both of my parents were there. So it's a tricky one, and I think I take my hat off and I extend my best wishes and feelings to anybody out there that's like fighting with this sort of thing, because it's very difficult to deal with.
Yeah. Alright, so I've got the book.
Okay.
The only thing that I've stated in the... Because for each event I do a little write-up of the build-up to the show, then
Yes.
I talk about what happened on the show.
Yep.
But the only sentence I've got there is, as far as what had changed in a year, we had lost all contact with Blade. So I don't know if you just weren't on MSN anymore.
Yeah.
You probably weren't, maybe that was your League of Legends.
It's a World of Warcraft phase at this point, yeah.
World of Warcraft era
Yep.
of your life. As far as what changed in the year, we'd all lost contact with Blade. Mike and Stacey broke up. Vaughn and I got along very well. Norman now lived in Sydney. We got in touch with Oliver about making a possible appearance, but he did not show up. But yeah, that was all that's written there, is lost all contact with Blade.
Okay. So yeah, like I said, I probably just had gone incommunicado at this point.
And that's fair enough. Just also looking up possible... No, nothing really about you at Fight for Farewell.
Okay.
Yeah, Blade and Lance in a big match to sort out who's the better man from their 2003 rivalry. Cool. Anyway. So that's what happens. But then the next thing we get to is the XCW Hall of Fame.
Yes.
So I believe that's in 2007.
Yeah.
I'll find it anyway. So we finally got in touch with you.
Yep.
To come to the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
It's reading through. Sorry, folks.
So I think one of the interesting things about the Hall of Fame ceremony, because I remember I think when you and me got together last time, we watched my induction segment or whatever, and you were like, "Dude, you look like a mafia thug boss," because I showed up in a leather coat. Yeah, and I had lines in my hair and a massive goatee and
you look like a badass.
Yeah.
It just all it says is finally the Blade we finally got into contact with, so it was great to have him there. So XCW Hall of Fame.
Yes.
I guess now we've got the Australian Backyard Wrestling Hall of Fame in comparison. The XCW Hall of Fame may not mean as much.
No.
But it was basically just a night to get everyone back together and talk about old times.
Yeah.
So what was it like, reconnecting with everyone again after, nearly 2 years?
I think that's really cool. I remember speaking to you and, the guys, and it was nice, I guess, just to see everybody again in the one place, after so long. I mean, I remember, I said in the last podcast, this was the infamous night that Vaughn was actually nice to me for the first time ever. I remember you guys went to the casino, but I didn't come along.
That's fine.
Just because I think I was still very much in my hermit phase at this point. So
it's alright, we were there 20 minutes and we got kicked out because Leslie went up to a barmaid who was holding a tray of drinks and he took one off and walked off. So we got kicked out.
I wish I'd been there to at least see it.
Just imbeciles.
See, that's why you should not do backyard wrestling. I dropped him on his head, and that's why he did that.
That's what comes of it.
Yeah.
Alright. Halloween Horror 2007. There were several concepts on how XCW was going to return. I had several ideas. One idea was there wasn't going to be an on-screen owner. There was going to be I came up with the idea of the anonymous Raw general manager years before it happened.
Yeah.
But it was going to be more of an epic thing than just a fucking laptop at ringside. It was going to be a voice that will play over the speakers in the with the trick on the voice to make it sound all
garbled and stuff.
Like it's a stalker calling you on the phone.
Yeah.
It's going to be kind of like that. It's going to be called The Presence.
Oh.
And The Presence was now in control of XCW, and we didn't know who it was, but eventually it would be revealed at some point to be whoever.
Yeah.
I didn't know who it was going to be yet, but that was the idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, I realised at the time there's no way it's going to happen. I can't be bothered organising all that and getting it all recorded so we can play it at the right appropriate time on a CD player, so you don't know if the CD player's going to play it immediately because we had shit CD players. So I scrapped it. John had always wanted to do a one-day tournament, so we're like, let's do a tournament. Strip me of the title, and we'll have a new champion.
Okay.
For Halloween Horror 2007. You return as on-screen owner.
Yes.
Did quite a good job on the microphone, I must say.
Yep.
And then we re-kick off the feud that we were supposed to be having back in 2004. So, thoughts on coming to this show. And obviously, you were a lot more heavier set now than last time. We did cover this the first podcast we did.
More round, rotund.
More rotund.
He has suit.
Yes. So, didn't book you to wrestle.
No.
I think we both
that was on my
about
request.
It.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it, and you're like, you're not too confident yet to get out there and wrestle at your size.
Yeah.
Even though, Norman did it for years and Homicide did it for years.
Yeah.
We were still, for some reason, I was like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't. But, you probably could have done it.
Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, I probably could have. But I think at this point, you look at, like, the Blade Shaw of XCW in 2003 is much different to the Blade Shaw of XCW in 2008.
Yeah,
like,
way different.
The size is completely different. Like, I put on tons of weight. I've, like, grown upwards and outwards.
Yeah.
So it's like completely different physique, and I hadn't wrestled in so long. I wasn't sure, like, what was I going to do? There was no way I was going to be able to do some of the things that I could do back then.
The Orlandonization, bulldog off the side of the
ring.
Trampoline.
Yeah, I would never have been able to do that again. But yeah, like, it was still cool showing up and working on Mike, getting to do the on-screen owner thing.
Yeah. Plus, when it was main event time, you made your entrance and you sat down at ringside to make it seem like very important.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I got my own cool little VIP area.
And it was just basically, we moved Winston's bed out the way and put a chair there. But anyway, so we started a little feud between you and I. You stripped me of the title, stating that, because I didn't defend the title in the mandatory amount of days.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's not my fault the owner didn't book a show between the last show and now.
Yeah.
But, so that's a dig at myself. But moving on from there, that was a nice little show. Good to have XW return.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of round off things, get people to wrestle people that haven't had the chance to.
Yeah.
Just do a few more things, in the name of fun. Things like we hadn't done before, like a night show and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we get to Christmas Chaos 4. Now, one thing I remember asking you about and talking to you about of what you'd like to do was, you said you like to be involved in some more comedy kind of related skits.
Yeah.
So I put my mind to it, and I came up with this opening segment for Christmas Chaos 4.
Yep.
Junior referee, or Junior Santa Daniel Bonner would come out to give the fans a gift, which was just grass shavings in
dead leaves.
Yeah, dead leaves and grass shavings in a bag. Threw them onto all the fans' laps. Turned heel on them. Then you came out and said that he was very entertaining, blah, blah, blah. And then you got him this present.
Yes.
And the present had been out there since he walked out. It's a big, huge box.
Yeah.
Anyway, he goes to unwrap it, picks the box up, turns around. Koala Bear is in the box. Turns around, gets stunned by Koala Bear, jumps over the box, basically. So you're involved in this little comedy segment. Thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that was just me trying to adhere to a request of yours.
Yeah.
Like, okay, he wants to do something with comedy.
Yeah.
Do something with him in Junior F.
Yeah.
So that would lead on to something coming up at One Night Only.
Yes.
So see that? You got a side storyline going on there whilst you're doing the thing with me. So
yeah.
It's very nice.
Yeah, I know. It was good.
So later on in the show, you battle me in a match. Probably lasted about 4 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Looking back, I made a mistake on how I was booking the show. Because I should have booked you to beat me. I went through a ladder match with Chris Rowe, then I beat Koala Bear.
Yeah.
So I won 2 matches. I should have given you a win.
Yeah.
So that's another case of me feeling, when I felt bad about things years later. I don't know why. I just figured, oh no, I'll go over because I've got a challenge for the title soon or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, do you have many memories of finally actually going out there and having a wrestling match?
I remember people thinking like it was actually pretty brutal because like obviously my size had changed, so like I remember like people being like, "Holy crap!" Like I just clotheslined you and like clobbered the absolute crap out of you.
Yeah, your clotheslines, and like when you first hit me, you really, when that you do that shot to the back with the forearm.
Yeah,
it doesn't hurt, but you hit it and it goes
thud.
Nice
yeah.
thud. Yeah, and then like you give me a clothesline, you fucking belted me with that, and I thought we did pretty good for the short amount of time we did it in.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's kind of like just a taste of what was to come, I guess, when we would eventually have our showdown.
Yes.
So moving on from there, we move on to One Night Only, the first ever night show in XCW.
Yes.
So this is pretty significant for you. You go from a 3-4 minute match to 2 matches in one show.
Yeah.
So you finally got to have a one-on-one match with junior referee Daniel Bonner, and if he lost the match, you had to do your dry cleaning.
Yeah.
So memories of wrestling junior referee Daniel Bonner.
So good.
And
like
your first night show as well.
Yeah, it was. The night show was awesome because we had like, friends of you guys like who had shown up, so we got a big crowd. Like everybody's like drinking, and it was awesome. Like it's such a I guess hyped atmosphere. Me versus junior ref, like just fun. It was like obviously it's not only like match of the year candidate, but just like throwing him around and like doing the usual spots. And I threw him into the bush. I just like clobbered the absolute crap out of him. I enjoyed myself thoroughly. It was awesome.
I think it was just a good opportunity to get you out there, get some confidence, and just get a nice win under your belt.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Okay, later on in the show, we have the 3-way dance elimination match between myself, Johnny V, and yours. Not you. Sorry. Myself.
You truly. No.
You truly.
Yeah.
So you get to wrestle John for the first time in several years.
Yep.
You eliminate John.
Yes.
Powerbomb, so you got a nice little pinfall victory there.
Get one back.
I remember John specifically said to me, well, if I'm being eliminated first, you're not beating me, Blade's beating me. So that's actually fine with me, dude. That's a pretty good little victory for Blade. So the memories on that little 3-way we had, I thought it was pretty decent.
Yeah, like I remember watching back with you when we got together last time and watched all my matches, and it was actually really cool. Like it was interesting, the dynamic of kind of like, I'm kind of just this big dude, so I'm like, there's points where like I'm like destroying you both, and then there's points where I'm kind of just like, man, I'm fat and lazy, so I'll sit back and like let you two wrestle. But yeah, like
it's just funny to think me, you, and John had a 3-way once.
Yeah.
Like in the history of XCW, we didn't have that many, triple threat 3-way dances.
No, and so this was like one of the very rare matches that was a triple threat. But yeah, like getting the pinfall over John was awesome. Like we had that double powerbomb, which was really cool.
Yeah, through the box.
Yeah, through the box, super hardcore.
That's just XCW style, man.
Yeah, I know, right? That's like the cardboard boxes of steel.
Cardboard boxes were our tables, basically.
Yeah, exactly, because we were way too poor and unresourceful to be able to get tables.
Oh yeah, we're just too lazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, decent little match.
Good match.
Good showing.
Yep.
So that's supposed to lead on to the next event, Evil Intentions. But before I get there, I want to ask you, what does Johnny V mean to the career of Blade Shaw?
He brought me to the dance, definitely. Up until that point, my career was generally fairly undefined, I think. I mean, I had the cool mid-card feud with Lance, and that was awesome. But,
The tag team with O-Factor, that was cool.
Yeah, but
you're kind of playing second fiddle to O-Factor, being more of the
Yeah, exactly. You know, like I hadn't had that defining feud that really like brings somebody into the
stage
picture.
kind of.
Yeah, and to have that with John was awesome. Like I respect the fuck out of John, and what he's done in Australian backyard wrestling, and rightfully so. The guy's a first ballot, first class Hall of Famer for ABYW. So, yeah, like having that program with him did wonders for me.
Yeah, and I just think, you know, that there are those people that have meaning in your career.
Yeah.
And, you know, a Lance, an O-Factor, Johnny V.
Yeah.
Very, I think, influential in shaping what you would eventually become, moving towards Evil Intentions in 2009.
Yes.
So we didn't have an event for a while. Not sure what the go was, but we didn't have one for about maybe... I think it was February 2009 we had it, but we hadn't had a show in about 6 months.
Yeah.
Pardon me. But me and you, one more time in a respect match.
Yes.
Homicide was there. Hydro was there. They were both in the crowd. Drinking the piss.
Yeah.
Getting on the hooch.
Yeah.
We had a little tiff.
Yeah.
Earlier on, I told you off for drinking before our match.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because I drank like a 6-pack or something.
Because I mean, you know, back then I wasn't aware that you could drink and still wrestle perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I always just thought, oh, you might be dangerous. You might hurt yourself or hurt me or whatever.
Yeah.
So like at the time, I did crack the shits at you, but we had a hell of a match. So it really.
It was so awesome. I remember people puffing like fuck when I got up and like I elbow dropped you off the tram because you got this big dude like getting massive air and coming down, and it's like nobody expected me to do that.
Yeah, because you hadn't done the elbow drop off the trampoline since fucking 2003.
Yeah, so it was like, it was crazy. And the thing that bugged me was that event was amazing up until the point that it started to rain and got cancelled halfway through. Like, the tag match with Diffuser and Stacey.
That was the match that was happening as it started raining. Then it had... then we were going to have a scramble match for the EC title.
Yeah.
To get John's title reign over. Then it was going to be me and Vaughn in the main event.
I reckon that could have, like, if it had gone through, I almost feel like it might have been the best event we'd ever put on at that point.
It was pretty good. Like, we just had such a solid card so far, and I was very angry because at the time it was at Vaughn's house, and Vaughn was being a bit of a pain all night about the event being there. All he wanted to do, because his girlfriend told me at the time, all he wanted to do was go and hang out with her. He didn't want to have the event.
Yeah.
So he's, you know, dragging his feet around, not helping out with setting up and stuff. As soon as it starts raining, he's like, show's over, that's it.
Yeah.
Can't have the lights on. They're floodlights.
They withstand water,
they withstand
that's the point.
Being in the rain,
yeah.
That's the point. I didn't realise that at the time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
What I should have done was, the match continues, I'm sorry it's raining, the match continues, keep going doing the show, because by the time I left it stopped raining.
Yeah.
And that was maybe about 10:30, so we could have finished the show.
Yeah.
But a bit of a blessing, I guess, because I didn't have to put over Vaughn in the end, so no real biggie there, but just a shame. Really, didn't get to see everything else that was going to happen on the show. Stacey and Diffuse versus Team Canada was going to be great.
Yeah. I remember it started off like amazing. So good.
Yeah, they did a really good job. Me and you in the respect match. Proud of that one.
Yeah.
I think that was our ultimate match.
Yeah.
And the recent one we had just pales in comparison, I think. We went out there and we really
gave it a lot. Yeah.
We just put it all on the line pretty much. So
yeah,
I was very proud of that. And the end of the feud, and then, you know, we shook hands, and, you know, I put you over it and said, you know, Blake, you remind me of when I was owner. You've got ruthless aggression, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have another show, you know, until 2010.
Yes.
I guess because of how sour Vaughn was on having the event in the first place, and eventually he was moving out of that house anyway, so
we didn't have anywhere to wrestle.
So at that time I actually got my stepdad's ute, took Vaughn's trampoline and put it in Bonner's backyard in the place he was renting in Craigie or somewhere.
Yeah.
And then just left it in the backyard there.
Yeah.
So I knew at some point I want XCW to finish off So for some reason we need the trampoline.
Yeah.
So eventually, I finally organised a time once John and Vaughan had moved to Longroyd Gardens,
Yeah.
which we call it, to get the trampoline taken all the way there.
Yeah.
So, okay, now there's a pretty big backyard. We got possibility of finishing off XCW the right way.
Yes.
So, Extreme Evolution 3, I know we've talked about this before, but we're going to have to talk about it again.
Okay.
Extreme Evolution 3, I don't remember what you were doing on the show, who you were wrestling.
Neither do I.
I don't even think it's in the book. You have a look.
I guess probably.
Yeah, no, it wasn't in the book because the book ended after one only, I believe.
Yeah. So I guess this is what you could probably call the low light of my career.
Just a sec. I guess it's probably the. Yeah, I finished it all off on One Night Only.
Yeah.
And Evil Intentions. So okay, we're there at the show. We're waiting to start, and you told me like that day you were coming.
Yeah.
And I tried to call you, no answer. I think I maybe tried to call you another 5 or 6 times, and eventually the phone was off. I think I even probably went on John's computer to see if you're on MSN.
Yeah.
Couldn't get in touch with you, so we just had to go on with the show, but we didn't know what was happening. So on your end of things, do you remember getting missed calls? What was going on? But do you remember the specific moment of seeing my name pop up on your phone? Or
No, I don't remember any of that, but I remember what happened after that, like when you called me after the event had finished, just out of the blue.
Oh, that was months down.
Yeah, like much later on, but yeah, it's one of those things, and I mean, yeah, it's partly the depression, but I'm not going to just blame it on that. You know, sometimes people have these moments where they just have, you know, like
they don't
uncharacteristic moments,
and they don't want to answer to.
Yeah, anybody, like,
Yeah.
you know, like, what am I going to do? Pick up the phone and say, man, I'm like way too depressed and I feel like shit, and like, it's a hard thing to say, and it's a tough pill to swallow.
Especially when you're that age.
Yeah.
It's harder to let your walls down and just let someone know what's going on. Instead, probably the best idea is to just, I'm not going to talk to him.
Yeah. And it's a shame because, you know, like, we've known each other for so long. Like, why can't I pick up the phone and just say, like, hey man, I can't do this. But, you know, it is what it is.
You blocked us all on Facebook as well.
Yeah, I remember that. You know, I was just... I think I was ashamed. You know, it was very uncharacteristic of me. You know, I'd been at pretty much every show.
Yeah.
You know, since I joined, and, you know, like, I'm pretty sure in many awards, like, throughout the years, I'd been, like, runner-up to most dedicated, or, like... You know, XCW meant a lot to me, and I think I was, really disappointed in myself, and really kind of upset that I hadn't showed up. And it just kind of snowballed, you know. It made me feel worse.
Yeah, and I remember like the months afterward, like I kept on trying to get in touch with you, but like I even emailed you.
Yeah.
Because I knew your email address. You can't forget that one. But you know, I even remember messaging Homicide on Facebook, asking him.
Yeah.
And he was not giving me the time of day at all. He did not want to. He did not care for my concerns. He was like, you know, if Blade wants to talk to you, he'll talk to you. Like,
yeah.
He didn't want to get involved, so I was like, all right, well, whatever. So we're moving on to, I believe, Retribution 2010.
Yep.
A few weeks before the show, I give you a call.
Yes.
I've still got your number in my phone. I don't think you have my number in your phone anymore, so I called, you answered, and I think you're a little bit surprised to hear my voice.
Yeah.
And I just asked if everything was cool.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, having a show in the next few weeks, I'd like you to be there and be a part of it.
Yeah.
So, you know, take us through that phone call.
So weird, because like I didn't have your phone number, so picking up, you know, I'm like, who's giving me a call? And to have you on the other end of the line, and like, I remember we chatted for a while, and I kind of explained to you like why
Yeah.
I hadn't been in contact and why I was avoiding you guys, and
because I was concerned. I was like, maybe he doesn't like us anymore. Maybe he doesn't want to be our friends anymore. I don't know what did we do something wrong?
yeah,
But I realised we didn't really. It was just
it was something with me.
Yeah.
It wasn't about you guys, and yeah, I think that phone call may have completely saved, the my backyard wrestling career, essentially.
which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
This one phone call really, had that phone call never happened,
I don't think I would have ever.
What would have you been defined by?
Yeah,
The last thing that we remembered was you not showing up and not talking to us. So
Yeah.
that would have really sucked.
yeah,
But anyway, at this stage, I guess I'm easing you back into XCW, not giving you the on-screen owner role anymore.
Yeah.
Giving it to Chris Rowe, because I want to give him something interesting to do.
yeah,
And plus, you'd never wrestled Chris before, so my idea was he'd punish you, which is a story in true life. I'm
Yeah.
kind of punishing you as well by putting you in these silly matches,
yeah,
just to, art imitating life. I guess.
yeah, yeah,
But the first match you had back was a gauntlet match against all the stupid characters,
Yes.
and then Stacey was the last one.
yeah,
So I said to you, this is what's going to happen.
yeah,
You're going to beat Cola Bear, Junior F, Todd McAllister.
Yeah.
But then Stacey's going to come out, kick you between the legs, and then give you a frog splash off the side of the trampoline and
Yeah.
pin you.
yep.
And I said, this is you...
Paying your penance.
yeah, pretty much, yeah. So, when you heard about it, were you fine with that?
Yeah, I love that. Like, I remember you gave me some mic time, which was really awesome, and I kind of did like that shoot, a bit of a shoot promo.
Yeah.
Which everyone seemed to like be invested in. Like, it was cool.
I come back, I'm not the owner anymore, Chris Rowe's the owner.
Yeah, like, who the hell is he to be able to tell me to like wrestle from the bottom up?
Yeah,
I've
no,
been
you
here
gotta start
longer
from
than
the bottom.
him.
That's right, he said you got to start from the
Yeah.
bottom.
And it was cool. Like, I think it worked really well. And then getting to work the match and getting to, I guess, confront Stacey, like, many years later on after we've had that relationship in the past was awesome. And showed my character evolving. I remember saying to her, like, yeah, go ahead, like, I'll give you a free shot. You're not going to beat me. And then she kicks me, like, square between the legs.
Yeah.
I drop down, she gives me the frog splash, and I lose. Like, I have no problems with having job to Stacey. I think it's awesome.
Cool. So that was pretty much your one thing that you had to do to pay your dues back again. Just one thing. I wasn't going to punish you the whole time.
Yeah.
But that was it. Dust has settled now. We move on to Betrayal. 2010 at my house. No trampoline.
No.
Just a ladder and mattresses. That's all we needed. Bare bones, backyard wrestling at its best.
Yep.
You go one-on-one with Diffuser. So you open the show
Yep.
by confronting Stacey.
Yes.
I think maybe you grabbed her by the hair or something, or
Yeah.
grabbed her by the scruff of her shirt or whatever.
Yeah.
Threatening her for embarrassing you in your return.
Yeah.
And because she'd built that previous relationship with Diffuser in that tag match,
Yep.
Diffuser made the save for her.
Yes.
And then, very ECW style, makes the save, ding, ding, ding,
Yeah.
impromptu match begins.
Yep.
And a lot of people walked out from that show saying that was Blade's best match he's ever had.
Yeah.
So take us through Wrestling Diffuser at Betrayal.
So we finally have that match. All across this podcast that we've done together so far, we've touched on the matches I've had with Diffuser have not clicked. There's something that doesn't click with us, which is, I think, is like the fairy tale ending to Wrestling Diffuser. We had that match.
Yeah.
And it's just nuts. I remember us doing stuff, that people hadn't seen. Like, I got him up on my shoulders for, like, the Doomsday device, and then flip him around, and he does, like, the Tornado DDT on me.
That's right, yeah, that was awesome.
And then, like, I debut the reverse suplex for the first time, which nobody had ever done before.
And when I saw him do it, saw you do it to him, I was like, trust him to do that move with you.
Yeah.
Like, was it his idea or was it your idea?
No, it was my idea.
Well, trust him to be like, yeah.
Yeah.
He would have been all over that. Yeah, we can do it.
Yeah, and it was it was great because like I remember specifically Mike coming up to me and saying after the match, he's like, "That's the best match that you've ever had." And he's like, that was awesome." And I think like at that point that meant heaps to me. Like, this is me removed from being a wrestling fan for a long time, so to be able to go out there and put on something that people found entertaining, let alone people that you know personally, which is much harder.
Yeah.
So awesome, so rewarding.
Cool. So later in the show, actually no, before we get there, I want to ask you, what does Diffuser mean to the career of Blade Shaw? You've had some tough battles which weren't such great matches, but you had that one defining great match. But,
I think unfortunate disappointment that ended on a good note. Like, having that match in hindsight means like so much to me, and especially for a guy like Bono, who to me is like the pretty much epitome of like respectable figure in backyard wrestling. The guy is just so nice, so genuine. To be able to have that and say we ended things well, and like me and him will never wrestle again. I've come to terms with that. He's not wrestling again, but that's fine. Like, we had that match, and that's the end to it. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So later on the show, you face the ICWS, the Play Group.
Yes.
The Play Group from ICWS.
Yep.
During this time, we're actually having a bit of a XCW versus ICWS feud going on. XCW guys have shown up on ICWS shows. They came to our show. They did say, we should maybe carry on the feud in your fed, but I was like, there's too much going on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually feuding with Diffuser in XCW, whereas in ICWS, we're high-fiving, we're a team, we're beating up you guys, so it won't make any sense for us to
do that.
Unfortunately, we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I would have loved to, but unfortunately couldn't. But, you take on, Dan Zeppelin, Daniel Johnston, and MC Cruel, who portrayed the Play Group.
Yeah.
So, thoughts and memories on that nice little squash match.
Fun. Like, they kind of had a couple of ideas of like spots we should do, like the all hands in thing, and then I just like flipped them all over, like showing how much of a powerful beast I am. And it's funny because now, like, for example, I talk about especially like DJ and Dan, and now they mean parts to my backyard wrestling career that come later, which is crazy. But
they just would have been there for the cup of coffee and they were off and that's it.
Exactly.
Now it's like
like
big part now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I talk to Dan quite a lot, especially recently, and we've wrestled seriously now. And then DJ, we talk all the time and are really close.
Yeah. You guys have had a match as well.
Yeah, we've had a match, so it's just completely different.
So before we get to Warzone, I want to talk about the XCW versus ICWS 5 versus 5 series.
Yeah.
Just briefly touch on this. On the day Johnny V couldn't make it, the initial match was supposed to be him versus Mike Delcano. Delcano had broke his wrist or something. I think he broke his wrist.
Yeah.
So it ended up changing to Daniel Johnston versus Johnny V.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure he claimed that at the time that he had work or work-related things, but I know he was just hungover.
Yeah.
So John didn't show up. So I believe I had hopped on Facebook to ask you or Chris Rowe if you wanted to come along and fill in for John.
Yeah.
But you weren't able to.
Yeah.
But crazy to think that there would have been the possibility of Blade Shaw versus Daniel Johnston at ICWS in 2010.
Yeah, especially because, we only actually locked up properly for the first time this year. So, 5 years later it happens, but there's a chance for it to happen so much earlier.
Yeah.
I would have loved to, but I can't remember why. It might have been work or something, but I just couldn't make it down.
Yeah. And I ended up having to do double duty. But still, that was the first instance of Blade possibly being in ICWS.
Yep.
So we get to Warzone. Now, I'm looking back and I'm disappointed because I should have given you something a little bit different to do.
Yeah.
Don't know what I was thinking. I should have booked you versus Nick Ariel or something like that. Or I don't know. but you wrestled Koala Bear.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's just one of those instances where I wish that I booked things differently. You know, we didn't have much longer to go in XCW. I should have done something else with you on the show. But,
Yep.
you know, you versus Koala Bear, pick up the win. And then finally, at the end of the show, you and Chris Rowe have physical interaction.
Yes.
It's all been promos in separate segments.
Yeah.
Never in the same segment. You attack him after the
match.
the main event.
Yeah.
Him, Nick Ariel. And then me and Johnny V come out to put the boots to Nick Ariel.
Yeah.
Then Diffuser comes out, makes the save. We all go running off.
Yeah.
And then we're heading towards Christmas Chaos 5.
Far up.
So, any memories of that fucking hot day at Warzone?
Yeah, I just remember like sitting in a sweltering sun and people
It was-
bitching about like how fucking hot it was.
It was just so unfortunate because it was like the second last XCW show. I wanted to do a Warzone before we were all said and done.
Yeah.
And just for the opportunity to people wrestle people they haven't wrestled in a match before.
Yeah.
Just Mike versus Johnny V, Chris Rowe versus Nick Ariel.
Yeah.
I was supposed to wrestle Simply Scott, but he didn't show up.
Yeah.
Tony Pony Rowe versus Diffuser, which is a dreadful match. But you know, looking back, I probably could have booked it a little bit more differently.
Yeah.
But yeah, fucking hot day, and I think the match has suffered because of it. And we had most of the ICWS contingent there watching the show.
It's a bit disappointing.
Well, I'm looking back and I'm thinking they probably think we're shit.
Yeah.
You know, if this is the best we can produce
Put
in
together.
front of all of them.
Yeah.
You know, the only one who'd been there for proper good shows is Dan Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And I believe MC Crawl. But other than that, you know, not much.
Yep.
So anyway, we get to Christmas Chaos 5. So let's talk about the build-up to Christmas Chaos 5. We've got this great feud with you and Chris Rowe cooking, and it's going to finally see its climax. Going to finally get that cum shot.
Oh, beautiful.
That money shot
Mm.
of the end of the feud between you and Chris Rowe. So, what's your mind frame going into the last ever XCW event, knowing, not even thinking that there's going to be any other opportunities in future, but knowing at this time, this is it, this is the last time we wrestle?
Well, it's funny, right? Because like, you know, you get to those points in your life where, you know, things take priority, and I'm pretty sure, like, you know, Zibby talked about this in his podcast. It got to the point for me where I could only show up for my match at the show, and then I had to leave because I had a friend's birthday
You were
party.
pulling a Lance Lightning, basically.
Yeah.
There for your match, off for something else.
Yeah, exactly. And I never really had done that before. And it just almost seems ironic that it was the last show that was like the priority for me. But, you know, it is what it is. It's funny because I'm not even friends with that person anymore.
Oh.
So,
Well, that's a shame.
yeah, but, you know, like, I enjoyed what I was there for. I think the match that I had with Chris was...
That was very decent.
Yeah,
Very
it was
decent.
a good ender.
Yeah.
You know, and I managed to put him over in the end.
And every match was ending with that handshake. After,
Yeah,
you know.
it was just... It was a good show for us to get together and celebrate and respect what we had done for, you know, like 8 years.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, so we you know, were you sad thinking this is coming to an end?
Yeah.
I mean, the mind frame just before the event, you know, entering Longroyd Gardens for the last time.
Yeah, I think it was sad, particularly in the fact that, you know, for a lot of the guys that I was seeing there, I thought, you know, this is probably the last time I'm going to see most of you,
Yeah.
you know?
And I remember specifically because you had to leave as soon as your match was over.
Yeah.
Sammy Cash popped in to watch your match.
Yeah.
So you guys were leaving, and you know you had your match. You shook my hand, and you know I just said to you it was a pleasure. You know,
Yeah.
thanks for everything you ever did for XCW. Shook hands. You turn around and walk off, and as I see the back end of you walking out of the house, I start to cry a little bit. Because I'm thinking to myself, you know, this is a guy I've known for fucking 8 years. And I don't know if I'll ever see him again, because the only time I ever did see him was because he was coming for wrestling.
Yeah.
So now, like, I feel bad. Almost like, you know, that's it. You know?
Yeah.
That's a one chapter of my life, one friendship that probably won't get to see higher heights. You know, as far as being closer friends, but you know, things changed certainly, didn't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously in hindsight, you're maybe a bit disappointed that you didn't stay for the whole show.
Yeah, especially because, you know, having gone back and watched like all the other matches that I missed.
Oh man, it was voted the best show we ever had.
Yeah,
and the last match was voted the best match that was ever in XCW history.
So
how could you not? How could you even want to come back from that?
Yeah,
that is the perfect last show. That's it. We don't need to do anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, like XCW will never happen again, and that's fine because, you know, we went out the way that we wanted to. Like, you know, it
was on the right note, man. Even if we did, we wouldn't even have all the roster members. So.
No, you know, who would we have? Like,
Mike's not wrestling again. Chris is not wrestling again. Vaughn's not wrestling again.
Bonner's not wrestling again.
Bonner's not wrestling again. You know, well, we have me, you, John, and Nick.
Yeah,
and even Nick would be hard to, you know, convince.
Yeah. So it'd be just like us three.
Yeah.
So no, you know, like, getting that chance to end things the way we wanted to, and especially after, you know, having that 2005-06 like down period, like, holy crap, to be able to say like we continued that legacy for another like 5 years, even if it was very small. Amazing.
Yeah. So I guess I'll wrap up the XCW section here. We're only at 56 minutes.
Okay.
But I want to wrap off with some different kind of questions about your time in XCW.
Yep.
You know, we've done the whole timeline now, but maybe there's certain things I didn't really cover.
Okay.
What does Homicide mean to the career of Blade Shaw in XCW?
Getting me started. You know, like, I appreciate the fact that even if Luke wasn't super interested, he still came and he still helped me get involved. And that means a lot to me. It's a shame because, you know, we don't really speak that often anymore. You know, we've been close friends since we've been in school.
You guys have had a few falling outs over the years.
We have, which is disappointing. But I mean, hopefully, you know, we can get back on the same page at some point down the track.
Hey, never say never, man. I never thought me and Luke would be cool again, and now we are. Like, we're really cool. Like, last few times I've seen him, had a real good chat with him, and then I spent all that time making the little career.
Yeah, and he really liked that as well.
Retrospective of his career.
Yeah,
I think he probably would have been very thrilled to, after all these years, actually get the chance to see his old matches again.
Yeah,
I don't think since he had those matches he ever saw them.
No, and I remember he always wanted to have them for like a keepsake sort of thing.
Yeah, because we would have XCW viewing nights, but you know he was never going to come to them.
Yeah.
So I always thought, well, you know, I've also done one for Leslie. So now Lance Lightning's had the opportunity to see his matches again. So like, that always meant a lot to me that some of the guys from back in the day got the chance to see some of their stuff.
Yeah.
So okay, well, we've covered O Factor, Homicide, Johnny V, Diffuser. I guess maybe we'll do me then. What does Tazer mean to the XCW career of Blade Shaw / AJ Orlando?
Constant improvement. Like, you know, the first couple of matches we had, pretty meh. Like, you know, you squashing me generally.
Yeah.
But man, did we improve. Like, up until the point where that last match we had, like you said, was really solid. And I'm sure we'll touch on it in the WZWA portion.
Yeah.
Our last match was not spectacular. But,
don't know what went wrong, but we'll get onto it.
Yeah, but that last match we had in XCW, like, great. I think there is one more match maybe left between you and me, but I would want to make it like the match.
We'll have to really detail every single part of that match to make sure this time. Okay, we're not going to do an improv because last time it didn't work. We're going to have to do it to a T.
Yeah, and I would want it to be like a show-stealing.
Yeah, I would want it to be definitely the best match that you have had in WCWA.
Yeah,
that would be perfect for me.
Yeah.
But as far as me booking you, I was always just trying to think of something else to add to your character to help you out and make you more important.
Yeah.
So whether it was you being the first person to have a female manager valet in Stacey,
yeah,
you having the on-screen owner thing, you being first ever tag team champion with O Factor, yeah, well, that's pretty much about it that I can really think of.
And it's interesting because, unlike other people in backyard wrestling who have been doing it as long as I have, I can't say that I've had as many title reigns or victories. When you look at my list of title accomplishments, it's very small.
It's very bare.
But I've done some really cool things, and I think for that makes up for it, way more than any piece of cardboard could ever mean. Like you said, first female manager in WA yarding at least. On-screen ownership as well, which allowed me to evolve my character and my mic skills. Like, I'm proud of what I've accomplished, and what I've been given the opportunity to do.
Excellent. Well, Blade, I guess we'll end it there. That's 8 years of your career.
It's a long time.
It's a long time, man, and maybe it doesn't seem like as long because of how sparse the events were after 2004.
Yeah.
But I think looking back, you were always a huge part of XCW, and you were the one guy outside of the friend group, the initial friend group, the initial XCW crew, that infiltrated and became just a bigger part of it as everyone else did. Actually, and I'll throw in Stacey in there as well. Yeah. You and Stacey, you were the only two that really stuck around, and you look at that final card, everyone that was on that final show was everyone that embodied what XCW was. Yeah. Maybe it might have been nice to have Scorcher and Lance there too, but that final crew that was there, that's what it meant. Yeah. And you look at that intro video to the Christmas Chaos 5 DVD, and it's like, 7 from this year still remain today. Like 10 from this year still remain today, whatever it was.
And it was so cool. I remember Mike cutting together the hype package for me versus Chris, and it was so well done.
I had to really get him to do it because he was he had done so much on the DVD already. I'm like, you got to do a hype package for Blade and Chris. You got to make that, when you watch it back, you got to make that seem as important as it actually was. Might have been the opener, but it was a hot opener. It was a feud that had been brewing for a whole year. So
and it was awesome to see. And just the way that we ended, like I said, and the way that we could come to terms with what we had done and had wanted to do was all said and done, all laid out on the table. You can't end any better than that.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking about it, before we sign off, we only just hit an hour, so before we sign off, I want you to talk about what Just Might means to Blade Shaw as far as at XCW. I know you maybe only ever had one match, but what influence does Mike have on how you look back on XCW?
He made, I think, the image of XCW. You think about the way that we're presented online, the way that our production value changed, the way that I guess people viewed us as a whole. That's Mike, and just like Luke Monet is for WCWA. That is how Mike is.
With a vision.
Yes.
And I've got my vision on the actual product, but he's got the vision on the
screen, the product.
And I remember when Rusty came over for Resolution, he was staying at my house, so I was showing him all the XCW DVDs, and he's just holding the DVDs, just staring at them, just like, this is so fucking cool. I wish we had something like this. Yeah. And that's something I think the East Coast guys can never say they had. Yeah. And Mike was the reason we had that. Yeah. And, you've got all the DVDs and stuff, so, you've got things to look at, years down the line, and I think that's what Mike really means to XCW as well.
And to be able to have that physical memory it means heaps.
It means more than just having, some files on a hard drive.
Yeah, exactly. And so, they're still in my DVD collection today, and, my friends come over and they look at them, my girlfriend's parents saw them, and they're like, actually took one and popped it in and
really?
watched, and they were like laughing at me. They're like, "Oh, like we saw you wrestling." I'm like, "Yeah." But like, I'll keep them, until I die. Essentially,
Yeah.
like they'll always be part of who I am and like what I have.
Yeah. And lastly, I will ask you about Chris Rowe. He was your final opponent. He was that last guy you never got to wrestle.
Yeah.
So, what does Chris Rowe mean to, I guess, in the last part of your XCW career?
Yeah, like Chris coming out of nowhere, like was super involved and like super passionate. Like I know he was involved a lot in the production side and like helping you guys out, like
just the live production.
Yeah, exactly. Like getting the mic set up with like the amp and all that kind of stuff. And to be able to face a guy that had showed so much dedication in the latter part when I think a lot of people were winding down and didn't care as much. That to me was awesome because you almost see like a reflection of yourself as like I remember when I was that enthusiastic and invigorated, and so seeing him like kind of give it his all and do the stuff that he did, which was so like another unorthodox wrestler, and the nicest guy. Like he was one of those guys that like would always say hey and like we'd have a chat. Like so awesome.
And it is a shame that he came in so late.
Yeah.
He debuted the show that you wrestled Johnny V.
Yeah.
Christmas Chaos.
Yeah.
So he only really got to wrestle on 3 or 4 shows before it had
wound down. Yeah.
But I find Chris Rowe at the end of XCW was so important to not only the live show aspect in keeping the show running well, but you weren't there for it, but it's not even on footage, but at Christmas Chaos 5, when we had those breaks between the matches, because we always had the breaks, Chris was on screen owner, right? So without leaving the camera on, he would go out there and entertain the crowd between the matches to try and keep everyone, hyped up and stuff. So I remember one thing he did was he had a competition to see who could throw a ball the highest and then catch it. Just like all this stupid shit.
Oh, didn't he do like the minty wrapper thing where he was like, how long like can you strip the minty wrapper? Like that stupid thing that you do when you're like in year 7. And like he would just do stupid shit, but it was interesting. Like
it was entertaining.
It kept people like involved.
And kept people's attention going. But I think that final XCW match with me, Diffuser, Johnny V, the two guys that founded XCW. The one guy that meant so much to XCW.
Yeah.
And then you got Borny Too Horny on camera and commentary. How can you do XCW without that?
Yeah.
Because he was the commentator of XCW.
Yeah.
To have Chris, on the sound and doing the ring announcing and all that.
Yeah.
Mike is the referee.
Yeah.
You got all those factors in there. Great way to end XCW. Would have been good to have you in the crowd, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's it, Blade. We'll end the XCW section here.
All right. Cool. Thank you very
much. And not even talking about WCWA yet, but thank you very much for everything that you did for XCW, for being so dedicated, and for just being such a big part of it, and being someone who was on the outskirts of the group. Managed to become a big part of the group. You persevered over the years. You kept trying, and eventually you were accepted, which is very difficult for teenagers because they're just assholes. Yeah. So Blade, thank you very much for what you did for XCW.
Thanks, dude.
All right, that was the GBYWN Australia podcast, part 2 of Blade Shaw. I will be with you for part 3 for the WCWA section of Blade Shaw's career, and man, this is one you're not going to want to miss. Thank you.